Warriors must know why. There's never victory on defense. War has goals, battles, objectives. To know future, study past. To understand human nature, learn divine. The secrets are in scripture, hidden in history. The Bible begins at the end, before the beginning, an ego-engineered evil and a disconnected devil. First sin is a passive, unprotected Adam, permitting the first psyop. Basic weapon is body, ultimate mind, battlefield soul. Gain the mind, win the soul. Rulers write history. Heroes define it. Martyrs make it. Selfless sacrifice survives sabotage. Elite soldiering is mind over matter. Ultimate warriorship is all heart. Valentine was martyred for marriage making, sanctifying the highest and hardest sacrament, ordaining the maker's micro-society, family. Ex-DEA and DIA retired SOCOM soldier, deep state targeted, turned whistleblower warrior, sabotaged and slandered, betrayed and saved, rejected and redeemed. As teacher and truth teller, now America's intelligence officer, resisting tyranny in obedience to God, welcoming like-minded patriots, training next generations to infill corrupted agencies and St. Martin them, inside out, bottom up, co-opting conquerors in Christ. Welcome. I'm Jeff Prather, and this is the Prather Point. Lots going on today, guys. Big show. But first, remember to go to beready123.com, beready123.com. Get your Iridium 9555 phone for free. It's the best out there. Really important to have that. And if you don't want to spend that much money, then you can go into the jeffreyprather.com shop and get these great EMF-proof little beanies, which are the real answer to the tinfoil hats as well, or even generators or even backpacks. This is a great little EMF backpack, which also has a ballistic pad in it. Sat123.com, beready123.com has all of that. And be sure and use promo code Prather for 10% off on every purchase. So lots going on. I'm going to jump right into that. Breaking, ex-Prince Andrew has been arrested. Now, this is probably performative rather than substantive. Remember, I said if there would be any Epstein arrests, they would be performative, not substantive. So one reason for that is he was arrested on his birthday. So Virginia Guffrey, remember, who was struck by a vehicle and then suicided herself in Australia after saying she would not suicide herself, clearly said that Epstein trafficked her to Andrew. So that was the true evidence of what was happening there. But it is significant that former Prince Andrew has been arrested, and on his 66th birthday, it seems to be performative rather than substantive. So the arrest took place, indicates that the arrest is more performative than substantive, as I've said. It's reported that disgraced Prince Andrew has been arrested. The former Duke of York, son of the late Queen Elizabeth II, and brother to reigning King Charles, has been arrested on the day of his 66th birthday. King Charles has said, "We'll let the law take its course." So I certainly don't think that the arrest would have happened without the permission of King Charles. The police have been assessing claims against Mr. Mountbatten Windsor that emerged in the Jeffrey Epstein files, including allegations that he shared sensitive information with the pedophile while he was UK trade envoy. Not that he was trafficking Virginia Guffrey. So this is still the global cabal covering up the trafficking scandal. But is it a step in the right direction? Yes, certainly. It's better than nothing. But is it substantive rather than performative? That is, would this lead to an investigation that would force the FBI, DOJ, AG, Bondi to actually do something. Highly unlikely, because again, they're investigating him for trade secrets, not for child trafficking. This is similar to the ridiculous standards they were bringing against the former FBI director Comey. It wasn't for a coup to overthrow the government. It was for lying to Congress. And of course, they did it late and at the last minute. But it is significant, and it is more evidence that we are winning. The global cabal, the global Satanist, pedophile, cannibal, Satan-worshiping cabal has never been exposed as it has been now. Another really breaking story, and excuse my cough, I'm working on getting better, and thank you for all your prayers and advice on that, is Tucker Carlson was detained in Israel and questioned. Now, the subtitle says, journalist dragged into an interrogation room. I doubt that was the case. But Tucker had gone to Israel at the invitation of Mike Huckabee, because, of course, Tucker is calling out American Christian Zionism and Israeli Zionism. And, of course, Mike Huckabee is a huge American Christian Zionist, misreading scripture completely. So Tucker took him up on his opportunity. He went over to the Middle East. He was in Jordan, and he was commenting on how Christians have been mistreated. But he flew to Tel Aviv for a sit-down with Mike Huckabee, who challenged Carlson to speak to him directly, which is good. But, you know, Carlson, as always, is frequently criticizing Israel for its military actions in Gaza, for its genocide, as he should be, as so few are. But Carlson told the Daily Mail that after his interview, Israeli officials confiscated his passport and hauled him and one of his colleagues into an interrogation room. Men who identified themselves as airport security took our passports, hauled our executive person into a side room, then demanded to know what we spoke to Ambassador Huckabee about. So, of course, this is not a good look at all, just like AG Bondi's look before Congress was terrible. Two sources familiar with the matter had said that the Israeli government initially did not want to allow Tucker Carlson in because, of course, he's a podcast titan. Him and Candace are the big voices of anti-Zionism, telling the truth when almost nobody else is. Everybody else is bought off by Israel. But they decided to not bar him. And a spokesman for the U.S. Embassy in Israel denied that Carlson was detained and claimed he received the same passport control questions and the countless visitors do. That's, of course, not true. Where the Israelis' question is in the line ahead of time. They do behavioral detection by asking questions, which is much better than the ridiculous TSA systems that we have. But hauling him into a room, that's singling somebody out. And so they're lying about that. So Carlson has accused Huckabee last week on his YouTube of not ensuring proper protections for Christians in Israel. Christians in Israel getting spat on, persecuted quite a bit. The Christian numbers in Israel are going down. And of course, there has long been Christians in Israel. Rabbinic Talmudic Judaism is newer than Christianity in Israel, by the way. But Huckabee had said on X, hey, why don't you come and talk to me? So Carlson did that. But despite the interview, right after the interview, being hauled in by Israeli government officials really shows the arrogance and pettiness of the Zionists. On a side note, recently my wife attended my mother-in-law's funeral. The family is Jewish, as was the funeral. So to not offend her relatives, she removed her tiny cross necklace. Her relatives see that as idolatry and offensive, all the while they have no issue wearing the Raphaim star. The Raphaim star, better known by Jews as the Star of David, has no Torah significance. There is no reference to it. However, in Acts 7:43, Stephen refers to the star of your god Raphaim, which some scholars link to Raphaim, a name derived from Raphan, with a possibly connected to the planet Saturn or the deity Moloch. The Rephaim were a race of giants mentioned in the Hebrew Bible, Deuteronomy 2:11 and 20, Joshua 12:4, often associated with the land of Canaan before the Israelites arrived. In Amos 5:26, the phrase, the star of your god Chun, is used, and many scholars identify Chun as the same deity, Raphan, Rephaim, linking all three names to Saturn, the six-pointed star, sometimes called the Star of David, is not biblically connected to David, but has historically been associated with Solomon and occult traditions, Kabbalistic traditions. So that's just an example of how the Zionists expect to be treated in an elite way while they mistreat everybody else. It's a racial superiority affectation, just like Nazism. Beyond that, it's important to note that Iran war is imminent and appears to be inevitable. We've now got 3 carrier groups over there, and it appears that Trump, in thrall to Netanyahu and the Israelis, is going to eventually strike, even though the Iranians are still trying to negotiate out of this. But it looks like that's going to happen. He's just building up the troop forces for an overwhelming air strike, along with the Mossad and CIA elements that have been destabilizing the Iran Revolutionary Guard. And so they're looking for regime change. Will that work? Well, we will see. Does a regime change work? Well, it works. Is it a long-term solution? No, never. The Iran Revolutionary Guard currently is angered because of the overthrow by the CIA originally. And of course, everybody that we overthrow then is worse than the last time. But it appears this is going to happen. All our C-17 aircraft are over there, 3 aircraft groups. So Iran war appears to be inevitable and imminent, even though Trump knows it is extremely unpopular in America. But he's carrying out what Israel and Netanyahu wants him to do. Further, at the same time, Apple has bought an Israeli pre-speech tech firm implicated in the Gaza genocide. Apple has quietly paid nearly $2 billion for a pre-speech tech company whose employees helped Israel commit genocide in Gaza. This is the second biggest deal in history. Apple paid this money for a company that doesn't have a product, doesn't have any revenues, and whose website is a single page containing 15 words. So, of course, this is a backroom deal. The company Q.AI is developing sensors which map the imperceptible movements of a human face to determine the words someone is thinking before they're spoken. So this is pre-crime, like the Tom Cruise movie. They call it silent speech or pre-speech. And it appears to be exactly as sinister as it sounds. Why? Because like AI and synthetic biology, it's going to come out with the result that they want. Announcing the deal, Tom Holm, an executive at Google Ventures, one of the company's early investors, revealed that 30% of Q.AI's more than 100 staff were called up to participate in the Gaza genocide. This admission means dozens of people implicated in the genocidal acts who serve under the political command of Yoav Gallant, an ICC, International Criminal Court indicted war criminal, are now Apple employees. This should be a huge scandal, but you're never going to hear it in the mainstream news. The biggest company in the U.S., one of the world's most recognizable names, has folded into its staff dozens of people who served in the military during the period it committed genocide. But every single mainstream article which covered the news for the deal ignored this fact. Apple has paid $2 billion for something that barely appears to exist. That is, it's a fantasy. Like AI, a fast parrot, it's going to produce the results they want. So that is, you were thinking about anti-Semitism, and so you are guilty of anti-Semitism. This Q.AI's technology centers around silent speech. This is the idea before we vocalize words and move our mouths, our brain has already sent signals to muscles in our throat determining what we're going to say. So Q.AI claims to have invented infrared sensors that can pick up on these things. And they've got a diagram. This is total BS. Just like synthetic biology, this is simply to get the results they want ahead of time. Tech bloggers have suggested Apple bought the company to enable nonverbal control of all iPhones and other devices via its AirPod earphones. So you should never use AirPods. You should always have wires or smart glasses. An annotated diagram included with the patent shows a person wearing glasses and an earpiece integrated with technology. And again, because of the house fire, I don't have my cockpit set up, so I can't show you these things, although it is on my Patreon. And you can always go to patreon.com and follow along and see all of these articles. You can just pretty much follow the show that way very clearly, patreon.com/Jeffrey Prather at the $5, $15, or $25 level. But because they want to control everybody's thought about Israel, this is very significant. Last year, Google bought Israel cybersecurity whiz for $32 billion, which at 64 times Wiz's annual sales was widely seen as an inflated price. At this price, however, Israel received a huge $5 billion tax windfall. The company has a large, R&D campus in the country. It's second biggest outside of the U.S., into which large numbers of Unit 8200, that's the famous Mossad Israeli cyber unit, very bad, and Unit 81 graduates are funneled. Apple CEO Tim Cook is a devoted Zionist, has visited Israel on numerous occasions, and in 2018 received an award from the Zionist lobby group, the ADL, for his groups to censor anti-Israel speech. And that's really what all this is about, is to censor further before you even say anything. So this is a pre-crime future. And a few days before the Q.AI deal, the head of neurotechnology at Israel's Directorate of Defense Research and Development, the country's equivalent to the U.S. DARPA program, gave her first ever interview to Israeli media. In the interview, she referenced Q.AI and said the Israeli military is working on a similar technology. So think about that. The Israeli military technology of cyber influence operations is going to be in part of Apple phone systems. And so again, this is just to control everyone's thought process on this and go along with the American Christian Zionism and Israeli Zionism. So one can imagine it now. Based on our silent speech detector, we have determined you were going to say something hateful or anti-Semitic or un-American, and therefore you are under arrest. That hasn't happened in America yet. It has happened in Europe, but it's therefore no surprise that the creators of Q.AI are veterans of Israel's genocidal military security state, or that the largest company in the U.S. sees these technologies as essential to its AI future. And why is that happening now? Because when Trump launches the Iran war at the behest of Israel, there's going to be a lot of criticisms. So you put this platform together, and all of a sudden you're going to have anti-Americanism and anti-Semitism happening here. It's also worth noting there's a show called Tehran. I've watched it. It's an intelligence show. It's pretty good. It goes over the top. Mossad has all these agents in Iran, unlimited resources, which is not realistic, and their pieces work underground, and they're talking back to Mossad headquarters in Israel. Comms never go down. In real life, comms go down all the time. I know that from a lot of personal experience in the DEA and DIA and Special Forces. But that's why I'm always talking about SATCOM, because the next best thing to SATCOM are sat phones. But regardless, the producer of Tehran was found dead in an Athens hotel. And they're saying it was suicide, but there's ligature marks. Now, if the ligature marks, just like with Epstein, the ligature marks moved. So ligature marks, when you strangle yourself, don't move. They don't overlap. These appear to be the same thing. And so this may be an Iran hit team striking back. So just because I'm criticizing Israel all the time doesn't mean Iran is all the good guys at all. And they have a real record of this. Now they're talking about 30, 40,000 protesters killed. There's no real reference for those numbers. But this producer, Eden, had expressed her hope that Israelis and Iranians would one day walk together in Jerusalem and Tehran as friends. So that may be even a Mossad hit team doing this too, because they want to make sure that there is Iran war as well. But, I don't know. I don't think she was committed suicide. I think she was killed. And it's still, as a former DIA intelligence officer, I'm pretty critical of intelligence shows. And Tehran's pretty good. It goes over the top. It becomes way more dramatic than it should. But the basic premise is pretty good. So that's something to be aware of too. And also, after a decade of U.S. troops in Syria, U.S. troops are being evacuated. Now, that's good news because that means no boots on the ground. Now, there could be boots on the ground with the imminent and inevitable Iran war because they're going to do lots of airstrikes. And if via Russian technology or China technology, which is spotty at best, one of our aircraft are shot down, then one of our pilots is behind enemy lines. Then they've got to activate the AFSOC, Air Force Special Operations, CSAR, combat search and rescue stuff. And so then you got boots on the ground. But the fact that we're pulling troops out of Syria, about 1,000 troops, is actually good news. Good news that we're not going to have boots on the ground. Remember, those 112 C-17s that went over there were basically empty. But it's bad news in the sense that the Iran war is even imminent. And two forces have said U.S. forces have already left the Al-Tanaf garrison at the Syria-Jordan-Iraq border and the Al-Shaddadi base in northern eastern Syria. The U.S. military started pulling out its roughly 1,000 troops out of Syria, which is long overdue. We've been there too long. And then officials emphasized the withdrawal is separate from the U.S.'s current buildup of naval and air forces near Iran, which is positioned for potential strikes if nuclear talks fail. And of course, that's a lie. This is exactly tied in on this. They're trying to minimize collateral damage to our troops or being taken prisoner. Because, as we all should know, the Iranians do like to take hostages. So a senior administration official cited the near total disbandment of the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, which, of course, is a tragedy because they were our best allies in that war. Also, it's very significant that the ZORRO ranch, which was Epstein's ranch, where there are allegedly graves, like at the Epstein Island, where there were graves, you could see them. In fact, one of my recent Substacks, I show pictures of that, and then they built a tennis court over that. And I don't think anybody's ever played tennis on this court. It's out in the middle of nowhere. Same thing in ZORRO Ranch. the FBI investigation never happened there at all. And so the state of New Mexico, the Attorney General's office, was launching an investigation. Well, now ultra MAGA self-described businessman Donald Huffine is therefore, he has purchased the ranch and he's going to turn it into a religious retreat. The FBI investigation into Epstein's ZORRO Ranch has purposely gone nowhere so as to avoid any more embarrassing evidence discoveries, such as bodies and videos. So the state of New Mexico started their own. However, self-described ultra-MAGA billionaire has purchased the ranch and immediately began remodeling the ranch into a religious retreat. Of course, this will destroy, demolish, or bury any additional Epstein evidence that might interfere with the ongoing AG FBI cover-up. And this is Donald Huffine, and he is a former GOP state senator from Dallas, now running a high-profile campaign for comptroller in Texas. And so you can almost hear the backroom conversation. Hey, if you buy the ranch and you demolish all the evidence, we'll make sure you get elected. And so this is more very disappointing cover-up by the MAGA cult that it is okay to rape, kidnap, torture, and murder children for Mossad and CIA. So that is also very significant and very important. And lastly, before I get to my guest, it's important to remember that the START treaties have ended. So when I was getting commissioned back in 1984, I was getting my international relations master's degree while I was going through Ohio State ROTC, and I wrote my master's thesis on the START treaties. So the START treaties limited nuclear weapons, which was a good thing, but they have ended, and so now there is no limitations on testing, and that's very troubling because the doctrine of mutually assured destruction, MAD, has worked very well. That is because of MIRVs, multiple individual reentry vehicles, on ICBMs, International Continental Ballistic Missiles. All cities could be destroyed. I'm sure you've seen the movies. The classic one is like Failsafe, where everybody gets destroyed. Well, that's really no longer true. There are tactical nuclear weapons. There are second strike capabilities now. And other countries, not the U.S., have hypersonic missiles. So this is very concerning because the balance of power is shifting. And if we go to war with Iran, as it seems is inevitable and imminent, because that's what Netanyahu wants, and Trump is in thrall to Netanyahu, Russia and China have decided to side with Iran. Now, we're already in a proxy war with Russia in Ukraine. And there have been, as I've reported, many instances of American and Russian troops killing each other. They just don't get told. But the Russian capabilities in this would be very, very concerning. The Chinese capabilities, they say they've got good stuff. But again, the whole Xi's whole problem with his military right now is because the rockets were supposedly filled with water because they sold off the fuel, and so he fired. That began the purges of the rocket force as well. Now there's a video of all these Chinese robot soldiers firing weapons, and again, I'm still assessing as a former military intelligence officer and American intelligence officer that's all paper. That those electronic robots could be shut down with EMP weapons, and there are EMP weapons now that do not require a nuclear blast. But if you go to my patreon.com/Jeffrey Prather, I have an extensive article on nuclear balance of power in the post-New START world that's very significant and very important. So I'll take a lot of chats here. So let me check all these chats here real quick. What's your intelligence on Jay Bhattacharya, who's appointed as the director of CDC. I have not looked at him yet, so I can't tell you. Looks like Epstein and Gates were part of creating the COVID pandemic. Yes, that's very true. They were in on that too. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, I just did a hour interview with Sean and SGT. I've published that on my Facebook, on my X, on my Patreon, and my locals as well, where I'm assessing that Epstein was changed out that night. There's a witness, a prison guard witness, who says somebody was moved by wheelchair. And if you look at the photos, the facial recognition, the nose, the ears don't line up. So it looks like he has been replaced. And it looks like from the photos of Maxwell as well, that she too has been replaced. And so this is showing that the deep state double government is still in on it. They're still running the cover up completely, because these guys are so evil, but they are so valuable an asset to the global cabal. So remember, again, the deep state, as I define it, is the double government. It's the Praetorian Guard puppet masters who run our government behind the scenes. The global cabal is the international deep state, primarily Israel. They run the dark economy of people, weapons, and drugs. And it looks like that's still very much going on, but they are being exposed as never before, which is a good thing. But anyway, if you want to see a real good interview, because I'm often told I'm a better interviewee than an interviewer, I just did a long interview with Sean about all of that. What kind of religion for the retreat? Pro-Zionist. Yeah, well, I'm sure. I assume you're talking about Ropa. I'm sure you're talking about the ZORRO Ranch, which has been renamed to San Rafael for Saint Raphael. And yeah, I'm sure it will be a pro-Zionist, because Trump is, as I've said, first American Jewish president, and all in. Earl Jackson says on X it's going to be a mess. But those are the really important things happening. To summarize again, breaking: ex-Prince Andrew has been arrested, but this is probably a performative rather than substantive arrest, because it's happened on his birthday, and they arrested him for possibly leaking trade secrets when he was a trade envoy, not for trafficking, for Epstein trafficking Virginia Guthrie, who was struck by a vehicle and then suicided herself after she said she'd never suicide herself in Australia, who testified very bravely and then wrote it in her book that Epstein trafficked her to Andrew. So they're, again, not going after this is performative, unfortunately, but it is revealing of how these evil, baby killing, child raping, Satan worshiping cannibalists are. And then again, Tucker has been detained in Israel. He's been released, but this is just showing the pettiness of the Israelis and how they expect to be treated better than everybody else because everybody else is inferior. Epstein and Maxwell likely replaced, and Iran war inevitable and imminent. And after decades, U.S. troops are exiting Syria, which is really good news. But the reason they're exiting is because we're about to have a conflict with Iran. And of course, there will be mission creep there. There always is. And then the ZORRO crime ranch, the ZORRO ranch is being demolished. So all the evidence is going to go away, just like at Butler, just like at Waco. The FBI isn't doing it themselves this time, but they are in on it. So those are the important stories. But I want to get to my guest. The heart of voter fraud in America is California. And the heart of voter fraud is likely through real estate and mortgage fraud. And my guest, Christine BISH, who is a realtor turned real estate investigator, turned whistleblower, turned candidate for California office, has uncovered that in detail. And so I really want to get into that because this is really the source, I think, of all the voter corruption. So, Christine, thank you for being so patient. I'm sorry, but I had to get through some really other important stories.
You know, I absolutely enjoyed listening to you. It was an eye-opener for me, because if you can imagine, I'm kind of in a bubble lately.
Well, you're real busy. I understand you're trying to
Oh,
get ahead of the oversight committee, but kind of start and give us your story of how this happened, how you got into this, and everything.
okay. So I am a real estate agent here in Northern California in the Sacramento area, but I had actually started out in the repo industry and was a skip tracer, repossessing cars, chasing, running them down.
That's a
Had
risk.
the
That's a risky business. Skip
It,
tracing.
you know what? It was fun. There is nothing more fun than stealing a car and knowing it was done legally. Uh, so I like my hair on fire. That's just my personality, my nature. But when I left repossessing cars, became a young mother. That's not a safe thing for a mother to do. So I ended up in a local law firm where I was there for 10 years, working as an independent investigator, locating people, locating assets, locating witnesses. Got pretty good at enforcing judgments, which means looking for the money and where people hide it. So it was just this unique skill set that I've acquired over the years. Fast forward, I decided to retire from the law firm after 10 years and got my real estate license. And it was fascinating to me how I was able to apply what I was doing at the law firm, how much I had learned regarding legal documents, document preparation, doing the judgment enforcement, going after people's homes, their bank accounts. It was the perfect complement to my background. So I get into real estate and I'm doing well. And I started doing the hard stuff, I guess what you'd call it, hard money loans, and ended up having some attorneys that I had worked with in the past asked me to research document history, title history, and this was the perfect complement. So fast forward, I decide to run for office and I get caught up with election integrity and found myself running in the 2020 election, and my eyes were really opened about how corrupt our elections are. At the time, someone had sent me in this 2020 election, someone had sent me a copy of a grand jury report. It had not been published yet. And in that grand jury report, it was about our Sacramento County voter registrar. There was a complaint that was investigated, and they found security flaws in the Dominion voting system. And the findings from the grand jury had recommendations that needed to be completed prior to September 30th, 2020. And that really sent me down, I don't want to say a rabbit hole, but it put me on a path to investigate what was going on with our elections. And, even more importantly, prior to that, when I had won my primary, I was running against a Representative Doris Matsui. And all of this ties together. Is as soon as I won that primary, I'd never run for office before, didn't really know what I was doing. I was figuring it out. And first thing I say is, okay, where does Doris Matsui live? And I started doing the opposition research. And as I'm doing the opposition research, I knew she didn't live in California. I found the house in Maryland. Now, I have a background in investigations, tracking people down, real estate background, access to databases of real estate and mortgage records all over the country. Now, anybody can do this. I just have tools to do it faster. So I make sure I clarify that. And I had discovered that she bought her house in 1979 as her primary residence and had refinanced it over several years as her primary residence. But she also maintained her voter registration at her then father-in-law's house. Both her and Congressman Matsui, her late husband Bob, had registered to vote using Bob's dad's house.
And that was in California.
And that was in California, yet their primary residence was in fact in Maryland, and we have the mortgage documents to prove it. Used some other resources, was able to verify they both had Maryland driver's licenses. Their vehicles were all registered there, even used nationwide insurance in Maryland. But while I was doing my opposition research on Doris Matsui, who I was running against at the time, I kept stumbling on to Adam Schiff, and it was a repeated pattern. So I started digging into Adam Schiff and pulled his mortgage documents and the tax documents on his house in Maryland. Turned out he was elected in 2000, bought his house in Maryland in 2003. He actually sold the California house in Burbank, then used the money and bought the house in Maryland. He rented a series of 1-bedroom, 1-bath furnished condos in Burbank, California, in order to maintain the appearance of a California residency. Now, fast forward to 2008, there was WikiLeaks was able to get into the House Ethics Committee. There was a complaint in there against Doris Matsui and Adam Schiff and several other members of Congress from going back to that time. And they were caught because they were taking the homeowner's exemption, the homestead exemption in the state of Maryland. So this doesn't jive with voter registration in California. So I pulled all the documents, actually made a trip to, Norwalk, California, Southern California. That's where the LA County voter registrar was, and obtained certified copies of Adam Schiff's voter registration forms. And that was to confirm that he was registered there. His last time registering was 2009, claiming he was a resident of California, but yet he continued to refinance his Maryland house as his primary residence. So it's not just the mortgage documents. In Maryland, he and his wife both signed affidavits swearing that they were residents of the state of Maryland. Now, this doesn't jive with California election law, federal election law, and since they were on mail-in ballots, they have a problem with those ballots being mailed through the United States Postal Service. That's a whole nother...
It's mail fraud. That's a felony.
Yes, it is. And so is putting the false address. So I put all this together. The first time I submitted it, it was about 165 pages, sent that to the House Ethics Committee in 2023. I got a receipt. Thank you for my submission. Thank you for submitting it. Heard nothing, did a couple interviews. It really didn't pick up. Then I do it again in October of 2024. And we got some media. I know Fox News was covering it and all that. But they said, documents had surfaced about Adam Schiff potential mortgage fraud. I'm laughing because they didn't just surface. The Tooth Fairy didn't drop these things off. I have a lot of investigative hours into this. So it was actually 2025, and I was kind of bummed out that ethics wasn't taking this seriously. So I had discovered a tip line for FHFA under Director Pulte. April 30th, 2025, I submitted online to FHFA and to the FBI, and hadn't heard anything until fast forward, I believe it was July 16th of 2025 when President Trump put one of the documents out on Truth Social. And it really started taking off from there. November of 25.
Let me interrupt you there for a second, because I know this story because I've been through.
You know the story, okay?
So welcome to the club. But so all of a sudden the documents jump to Trump. So there's no FBI investigation, there's no FHA investigation, but suddenly there's a political use of the documents.
Well, hold on. I don't find out. Let me tell you what happened. So I knew nothing about what was going on. But then Laura Ingraham releases a document, and it was the referral from FHFA to the Department of Justice, and that was dated May 27th. That Fannie Mae referred it over on May 27th, but I got no response, nothing on it until it popped up on Truth Social from the president.
And Laura Ingraham, I can tell you from my experience that I used to be on Laura Ingraham, maybe 5-6 years ago, exposing Fast and Furious. I was a Fast and Furious whistleblower. Now they won't talk to me at all because I was exposing Eric Holder and all that. So I know how this ends. But yeah. Go ahead.
So, it's so I started getting questioned by, I had an appointment. It was October of 25. And I was being asked by FBI and was it Office of Inspector General for FHFA. And they were asking questions because they had received the file and, where did I get my information? I said, this is all public record. And I deliberately kept it public record because there was no question where it came from, how it got there, because it's available to anybody.
That's always the first clue is, wait a minute, where or who was your source? Because they want to shut it down.
Right. So the source was the LA County Voter Registrar. The source was the LA County Recorder's Office. Well, did you use anything else? Yeah, the Maryland clerk recorder to get those mortgage documents. So the Maryland tax collector's office.
So you can just see them building up their cover-up case right there.
Trying to build it. Yes.
Yep.
So then they're asking me if I have a relationship with Ed Martin. How many times have you talked to him? I've never talked to him. I gaslight him once in a while on social media. Hey, how's it going out there? But I couldn't pick him out in a lineup if I was standing next to him. And never met him, never talked to them. So I ended up, they insisted I had more information, that I must have been, working with Ed Martin or Director Pulte, that they wanted communication. I said, guys, you're asking for something that doesn't exist. This is what I do. This is who I am. I've been doing this for years. And, you can go back and look the first time I submitted it. That was during the Biden administration.
I'm going to tell you why they couldn't believe it. Because their corruption makes them incompetent. They don't do real investigations anymore. And I'm speaking as a former 1811 DEA special agent. All they do is cover-ups now. So they can't believe how someone can actually do the work.
Well, it's funny you said that because at some point, I was called into or subpoenaed before the grand jury. When I got there, I was not sworn in.
What grand jury? Where?
Greenbelt, Maryland.
Oh,
and this is on the mortgage fraud for Adam Schiff. There was Ed Martin was appointed as the special prosecutor, and it was referred to the grand jury. So I get a subpoena in November of 2025. So I end up flying out to Maryland. I'm ready to go before the grand jury. They take me, I was taken into—
On your own dime, I assume.
Huh?
On your own dime, I assume.
Oh, absolutely. I paid for it all. And
see, what they wanted to see was if you didn't show up, then they could go after you.
Absolutely. I knew that. So luckily, we have the means to handle it, and I'm running for office. So hopefully we can recoup them. I ended up doing a lot of things that helped the campaign that would make it qualify. Not all of it, but some of it. But moving forward, they take me into a small room, and it's an interview room. In the room is me, a assistant U.S. attorney out of Maryland, guy from the FHFA Office of Inspector General, and some random FBI agent. And they're asking me about Ed Martin and Director Pulte. I said, well, I'm here to talk about the Adam Schiff case. Well, we need to focus on this. No, I'm focused on this. This is the evidence. I was doing this before any of these people were given their positions, and we can prove this. So here is the evidence. Here's what you need to investigate. And they kept trying to bring it back. Finally, I said, if you're interested in Ed Martin, aren't you guys all on the same team? Why don't you ask him yourself? And I'm paraphrasing myself. And the guy from the Office of Inspector General, he looks at me and he goes, same team. Do you mean Team MAGA? At that point, I know the interview's over and what the purpose is. So I did tell them that they were the Keystone Cops and they couldn't investigate their way out of a paper bag.
No, they're going after you.
They were going after me. So I was not sworn in. I could feel the perjury trap that they were trying to set, but luckily it's public record, so there's no perjury. It's pointing out facts. And what was amazing about all of this is they asked me, they said, we can't tell you not to discuss the interview today, but we would prefer you didn't. Now, I just got through listening to them try and play me like a fool. So I walked out to a bank of reporters. The only way I was going to protect myself was to be in the light of day. And I told the story. And here I am today. I'm telling the same story. The facts haven't changed. The evidence has not changed. What's changing is what's going on at the Department of Justice. Ed Martin getting fired. Other cases not making it through the judicial process in spite of the evidence. Letitia James, we're just seeing Cook, seeing these things, James Comey, seeing these things disappear. So I'm running for Congress again, and I will not stop. I will expose all of this, the election fraud, the voter fraud. The mortgage fraud only proves the election integrity issues. So where the media picked up on, because I just happened to have submitted to FHFA, this was never about me uncovering mortgage fraud. It was those mortgage documents prove their voter registration for Adam Schiff and Doris Matsui, Ami Berra, Eric Swalwell, that their voter registration documents were invalid once we had those notarized mortgage documents in Maryland and DC. So
the inference here too is because Schiff is in Maryland, that's really just DC headquarters. That's the swamp.
Yes.
So they're just protecting themselves. So did you ever ask for an FBI case number or for a U.S. Postal Service case number for any of these?
No, I did not.
Well, that'd be a good thing to do because you could request those. There should be, because you submitted FBI case numbers and U.S. Postal Service for the mail fraud aspects. Now, the problem with OIGs and OPRs, Officer of Professional Responsibility, I can tell you, they lied about me openly. And they can get away. OPRs and OIGs can do that because there's nobody else to check them. They're checking everybody else, and they always tend to be the most corrupt at all. But it sounds to me, based upon my long time bitter experience in this, I don't know if you know my background, but I was fired 1 year from retirement without ever being charged, convicted, not even having a bad evaluation for whistleblowing about the DEA's deal with the Sinaloa cartel to run drugs north in exchange for the fast and furious guns going south. So I'm real familiar.
The Potomac two-step. Yeah.
Yes. But I think that you should look into that. Not that you're going to find much, but you're in this fight and you should definitely stay in it. And
I love the tip. And I will run it down.
I'm glad it helps. So you mentioned the Dominion voting machines. They're very corrupt, and they're still all in place. But also tie in, for example, I used to live in Arizona. The money laundering that goes through the real estate to buy off the politicians in Arizona via the cartels is probably the same thing happening in California.
Well, and it's funny you said that. Sacramento, it was 2022. They were still using COVID money, taxpayer dollars that were directed to COVID scams. So there was a warehouse here that was purchased for $23 million in 2022, and it was supposed to turn into this big homeless shelter, resource center, that sort of thing. But just a year before, actually 13 months prior, an investment company had picked up that same warehouse for, I believe it was 12.5 million. There were no improvements that doubled the value, or almost doubled the value of that property. And when I talked to various supervisors, I was told that was the best building that they could find, and they had to spend the money or lose it. Which at that point, it's alarming. I'm in real estate. I know what the property was worth, what it sold for. So I started digging into that one. And what I found, there was a lien. It was cross-collateralized. This property was used in a $450 million loan, and it was cross-collateralized. So after the sale went through, I started looking, and I could not find the release of lien.
Wow.
So yes. So there is a lot of that going here. Does it still have this lien on it? I haven't seen the documents on it. And of course I started running again, but that's still out there. And it seems at every level of government, somebody's getting their piece of the pie.
Yeah. The deep state runs the dark economy of, people, drugs, and weapons. Is the warehouse on a main artery?
Yes.
Okay, so then it's probably being used for trafficking of the dark economy.
It's actually right across from, we have an old Air Force base, McClellan Air Force Base. So it's just on the other side of the railroad tracks. Well, that Air Force base is now it's been privatized. And they use the private airstrip for fixing planes and doing that sort of thing. So just this last year, the county invested another $42 million into retrofitting this building for homeless. But but for more than 3 years, we've been paying for private security guards to keep the homeless out of the building or the property that was built to put the homeless in.
Well, but you're also going to have plainclothes Chinese troops and also cartel hitters in with that homeless crowd for sure.
There is a possibility. Yeah.
I'd almost guarantee that, if based upon my criminal investigative experience of 19 years. But of course, the problem is who can you get to do anything? The FBI just covers everything up. The Arizona or the California Attorney General's office do have special agent investigators, but of course they're not going to be interested in doing any of this.
We've got all kinds of indictments coming down here. They got the chief of staff, former chief of staff for the governor, and then she was also a chief of staff for the attorney general.
Really?
She was picked up on a federal indictment. Oh yeah, and
by who? By the FBI?
By the department, by the FBI. So there was a huge sting here in California. It's not getting the media coverage, but they're still picking people up. It was entertaining, to say the least.
Well, that's very surprising because I have no faith left in the FBI. And I graduated from the FBI Academy in 1990 because there was no DE Academy back then. And I have, I know some old heroic FBI, Ed Morales, to hear the Miami gunfight. But that's surprising. Why do you think that they are actually doing their jobs in this area?
In looking at what they were doing and how they were doing it, I think these people were getting too sloppy. They needed to go down because they were too arrogant and reckless with the way they were either not covering their trail or poorly covering their trail. So at that point, they're no longer valuable. That's pawns in this big game.
Their corruption makes them incompetent. So let me ask you this. How does this tie into the SAVE Act because the Dominion machines are still going.
Yes.
But how do you factor
Well,
in
how this directly? Okay, we have people, Adam Schiff, who's voting, who will vote against the SAVE Act. But he is actually a person who would have been stopped by having the SAVE Act. His legal residence is in Maryland. Ami Bera, a representative I was running against here in California, is a legal resident of Washington, D.C. Eric Swalwell, running for governor in California, again, his mortgage documents prove he is a resident of Washington, D.C. Doris Matsui, both her and her late husband, from 1979, are legal residents of the state of Maryland. Under the SAVE Act, I believe this would have been caught. Not only would it stop illegal aliens from voting, but it would also identify people who have moved across state lines. Their driver's license would have to match their residency. And this is where House Ethics Committee, there's a problem there, because this originally started in 2008 with House Ethics, and it was swept under the rug by Nancy Pelosi. They ran cover for these guys, told them pay back the back taxes, move on. And in both cases of Matsui and in Schiff, they couldn't help it. They kept refinancing the houses. And in the case of Doris, while her husband was a sitting congressman, their house in Maryland went into foreclosure twice. And those documents were sealed. I had to recall them out of archives to show that this was when, right before the Clintons got in. So we had all that Charlie Tree and the Chinese money laundering. And then when Doris goes to work for the Clinton administration, all of a sudden their money problems are over.
Yes.
So I believe that the SAVE Act, having the identification, those issues, and right now, voter registration is not linked from state to state. And under the SAVE Act, providing information where you live to get your ID, I believe that's a safeguard. But it's going to be up to citizen investigators like me, like you, like Nick Shirley. There's a whole bunch of us, Scott Pressler out there, Sean Taylor, you name it. We are the people who will use our background and our expertise to do the job that law enforcement refuses to do.
That is really the new strategic sea change we're seeing. Candace Owens being at the center of that, I think, discovering about Charlie Kirk murder, the Israeli connections, the TPUSA turnabout, and mobilizing her huge audience. But I think you're doing the same thing. I think you need to do more of that and build your platform even bigger so that you can mobilize, force multiply other realtor investigations who can do what you're doing. Because I think what you're doing is really important. This is exactly what the FBI, U.S. Postal Service, there are special agents for the U.S. Postal Service. I've worked with them. The IRS. It's exactly what they should be doing. These are easy. These are actually not hard cases.
They're not. They're simple.
You've gift wrapped them in a bow. I mean, it'd be a slam dunk. But of course, they are politically protected. That's the problem you got to get around.
And hence my running for Congress. I'm hoping to be on the other side of this, where it's not just me, where I have a staff and this is part of our job.
Well, the Office of Special Counsel inside Congress is, they're not very senior investigators. They'll reverse themselves like they did with me. I can tell you that. Mm-hmm. Now, under Steve Friend and Garrett O'Boyle, the Office of Special Counsel was impressive at that time. So maybe that has changed. That might be another avenue for you to explore. But the other avenue I would suggest, since you like my ideas, is it seems to be that Tom Holman and ICE and DHS are at war with the rest of the DOJ, the FBI,
I would
cover-up
concur.
scheme.
Yes.
If you could get something going with that warehouse with illegals, and especially with cartel members, because Trump has declared the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, that might be a way forward.
I'll have to check on the progress on that, because I know the county just put in $42 million into retrofitting this. They could have bought all the homeless people in Sacramento houses, you know, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, or 2 bedroom bath houses for the amount of money that they're spending on this homeless shelter, when there's people around the perimeter, you know, living out of cardboard boxes and shopping carts. So clearly it's a game. It's a money laundering game here in California.
It's depopulation for repopulation. I said a long time ago, they're going to make America like Venezuela, and I've worked Venezuela. The marginales, the marginals who live, the homeless, which we never used to have. It's all by design. But I think what you're doing is really important, and
thank you.
It's interesting to me because you didn't go through the academies and stuff you did which is actually better. You did the School of Hard Knocks, which is a lot more efficient than, you know, learning it academically, you know, as I did.
You know, it was just, you can't teach someone this skill. It's, you have it, and the ability to see things for what they really are, not what's presented in front of you. And then also understand the process of chasing the paper trail. And it's I don't think it's something that can be taught. You can find the resources and figure out how to use the tool, but that investigative background, it's part of you. You have to know the truth. Even if you don't like the answer, it's about getting to the truth. It's
ruthless truth. So does anybody have any questions on Rumble before I let Christine go here? Because this is I did see somebody saying, "Oh, the BISH is back."
Yeah,
I guess you're
my name. I don't want to be popular. I don't want to be doing these interviews. I'm running for office because I want to be a servant, not because it's going to make me popular. It's not a lot of money.
But I think you've got to be popular. I think
you do. I didn't say I didn't have to. That's one of the consequences of doing this and trying to do the job that our elected officials and Department of Justice refuse to do. Now,
right.
When I was in the law firm, I'm going to let you know real quick, I had the option of becoming a private investigator. I chose not to. And at the time, I didn't really know why. And then it became very apparent. It's when you have those licenses or those jobs, they can take that away.
That's exactly right. That's why I didn't go after my private investigator license. I did Arizona Armed Guard instruction because I had a lot of government contracts for deploying troops. But no,
it gives us a lot of freedom.
Yeah, your instinct is right on. And I again refer to the Candace phenomena, where she's done more real investigation of the Charlie Kirk murder. And more importantly, she's activated the online community, you know, with their tip lines and everything. And if you don't have a tip line, I think you need to establish it.
We're about to launch it, and it's called the BISH Report. And the BISH Report. And you can go to tips at thebishreport.com. Tips at thebishreport.com.
BISHreport.com. And the BISHreport.com is a website.
It's a website, and that'll be up. So we're in the process of redacting everything on Adam Schiff, Doris Matsui, Eric Swalwell, and I did get a tip about, our assistant Attorney General Todd Blanche. So I do have those documents. I don't believe he did anything criminal, but he has some questions on mortgage documents as well as occupancy. And I have publicly called for Todd Blanche to recuse himself from any cases regarding residency or mortgage, or where that is part of the evidence.
That's infamously the Todd Blanche who said, we're not going to release anything else. We're not going to release the death, the torture videos and everything about the Epstein file. So that's really significant.
It is.
Tie that in, because that's, as far as I'm concerned, and my listeners and Team America and Christ Chaplaincy, is the hill we die on, the red line. We're not going to support these evil intelligence agencies while they kidnap, torture, and murder and rape children. So somebody is saying, what chances does California have of having a fair election for the primary in November?
Well, right now we're dealing with the state, with the hopefully with the SAFE Act, but we also have coming up on the ballot is voter ID in California, and that's coming up now. The governor here, Governor Newsom, he is desperate to stop the SAFE Act. In fact, the legislature gave him a bill to sign. Went through really fast, just a couple weeks ago, where he signed that voter ID in California is illegal. They tried to make it illegal. Well, the SAFE Act has to do with federal elections. So I guess the state of California is going to have to run 2 separate elections, which of course that turns into a problem under the 14th Amendment. So all of these mail-in ballots, these different schemes that they have right now, people are aware of it. The job here in California, because I believe we are far more red, but our people are beat down. They don't think their vote matters. So coming out as a champion for election integrity and holding people like Adam Schiff accountable. Remember, this was never about mortgage fraud. This was about election integrity. The mortgage fraud was evidence in the voter and potential election fraud in California. And this is setting the narrative straight now that it's in the public eye. And this takes it out of the hands, once we move into election issues, that moves it into Harmeet Dillon's court. While they removed Ed Martin, I don't think they have the power or the will to take on Harmeet. So I'm hoping as I pursue this, I've actually put in a demand to House Oversight that I be brought in to testify before the appropriate committees to go over the evidence, what happened with the Department of Justice and Office of Inspector General, because of the series of events and that I've been able to document them, House Oversight is the appropriate place to hear my story and the story of the evidence, which is far more important. I'm just the keeper of these documents.
Yeah. So when are you scheduled?
We submitted that today. I submitted this today.
So there's a comment that we're still slaves to the voting machines because, again, it doesn't look like the second Trump election was too big to rig. It looks like he made a deal. Now, you may disagree with me on that, but the comment here on X is we're slaves to the voting machines. The corruptive Dominion voting machines, all those across the country, including California, are still in place.
Well, there are some things that I have uncovered, right? So in California, 40 out of 58 counties have the Dominion voting system. And it's how did that come about? Well, that's Senator Alex Padilla, California State Senator, U.S. Senator now. He was the Secretary of State at the time. So he put everything in motion. So I had a bunch of my girlfriends jump in and help me because we were collecting the contracts between the counties and the Dominion system across all of California. And what's funny is our senator, U.S. Senator now, but Secretary of State, he had declared all of the election machines, the voting equipment in California outdated, and everybody had to update. Well, the counties pushed back and said, we can't afford to do this. We don't have the money to change this. So went to the legislature, super legislature, get whatever you want, just write it down. They came up with a bounty system. And the bounty system said that for the counties that bought a new election system that qualified on 3 categories, that you could qualify for up to 75% reimbursement of the cost of a new election system. Well, for an 11-month period, the only program or the only system that was approved was Dominion. And that was leading into, right. So I personally, I am not in law enforcement, but I think someone needs to look at that under a possible RICO statute.
Well, I know that there, so I agree with you certainly that Northern California is more red. I don't know about Southern California. I do know because I have law enforcement sources in California that they would like to look into this.
Well, I've got the evidence, got the grand jury report. In fact, in the grand jury report, this was issued in March of 2020. The recommendations in there was that the repairs for the security flaws in the Dominion system be corrected by September 30th, 2020. This was right before the certification process for the 2020 election. But we also have the response from the county, from their IT department, saying that they were not going to do the recommendations, that it would expose the system further, which meant that the voting system in Sacramento, California, it was not certifiable. If they have a certification on it, we have the evidence in writing that it should not have been certified, which meant those electors from California should not have been seated.
What's that county up north that threw out their corrupt government?
Shasta County. That's where I graduated high school.
Oh, excellent. Well, there's a place. There's a place to start fighting out from.
You know, a friend of mine who jumped in to help me, his name was Mark Cook. I, had discovered all this in the 2020 election and what was going on. So Mark came out and we were able to get him into the registrar's office. He was brought in to hopefully win a bid to do these repairs that were outlined in the voting system. And in there, not only do we have all of the cases for the Dominion voting systems, all that say made in China because they saved all the boxes, but we also have the only picture of a Dominion server. It's got the blue cord going into the internet, but sitting on the floor next to it is a VoIP telephone system. And we found USB keys laying around. There was a USB key sitting on top of a station. It says ballot programming station, and there was a USB key that said BIOS. So we published all this. It's on a website. It's called greatamericanrebirth.com, greatamericanrebirth.com, and look at Sacramento. You'll see a lot of the pictures, a breakdown, my FOIA requests, the response from the county. That basically, I'm paraphrasing, it says, if we were to give you all the information you wanted, it would put our system at risk and cause people to doubt the validity of our elections. Therefore, the public is better served by not having the information than having it. And that was signed by a Sacramento County attorney.
Wow. Somebody is saying San Diego County is red in rural areas for sure. Somebody's commenting on that. And somebody else is on X is saying people like Jeff O'Donnell, Joe Oldman, and Mark Cook should be able to review the stuff. I don't know about Joe Oldman, but yeah, probably the others.
Mark Cook and I have known each other for years. He's actually the person that was able to go in because I was running for office. So I have limited access going in because I was right in my first election. So Mark was able to go in. He took the pictures. He wrote up the report. And it's fascinating what we found. A ballot printing station with the password written on a piece of blue painter's tape and taped to the keyboard. Yeah, keyboard, yes. We found a pallet of ballots. And it literally was a full pallet sitting in the middle of an open warehouse.
Yeah, I think somehow the answer is going to be task forces from various legitimate attorney general states. But I don't know how to tie that in between California and Maryland. Haven't figured
Would you
out.
like to know? I can tell you.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so there was a lawsuit. You're going to love this. There's a lawsuit in Wisconsin, and it was about the metal ballot boxes, the drop boxes, and they were challenged, saying that they were unconstitutional because they didn't put it up for a bid, right? For 3 different companies to bid for that government contract. So there was a lawsuit there. The court found that the ballot boxes were unconstitutional because they didn't go through the bid process. So some of the ladies that I work with, they're great paper gatherers, FOIA request, a friend of mine, Deborah, she ended up getting the evidence file from that lawsuit. And as we went through it, it turned out it was all Zuckerbucks, Obama Zuckerberg Foundation, that had funded it. So Sacramento County got, because we had the tax returns that were in the evidence file. So Sacramento County got $8.3 million. Small rural county in California, Yolo, got $1.3 million. But it shows every county in the country how much they got in Zuckerbucks, what specifically it had to be spent on. And that included changing our voter guides and how the voter guides were to be laid out. It also instructed the counties to do away with volunteers, so they have a lot less volunteers, and to hire people. Now, we have a whistleblower on record, someone who did go to work for the county, went through a temp agency. The temp agency they're using is called Apple One. They had a couple of different ones, but that was the main one. So if you were hired in the county through Apple One, you had to sign a release that you understood your employee file would be held on record in mainland China.
Wow. Wow.
So there's so much. This is more than Adam Schiff. It was Doris Matsui and Adam Schiff that put me on this path, and it's been enlightening. But it also gives me hope. And and I am so hopeful for this election, for the changes that we can make. And now it's getting out to the people, hence being on as many podcasts and media as I can get on, is to say, we can beat them. We just have to beat the algorithm. And with citizens out there, citizen investigators, we're uncovering the voter fraud, people voting from other states. And that's why I'm staying on this with Adam Schiff, particularly Adam Schiff, because you've got to take down the big fish, just like Rudy Giuliani. You take out the window washers or the, squeegee guys, and it'll all fall into place. But we need somebody big enough to get noticed. That's why I haven't deviated. I've never run against him. I do not plan on running for United States Senate. I believe the place for me and my skill set is going to be the House of Representatives.
Well, you'll certainly be one of the most skilled there for sure, because they're not very skilled. They're simply ambitious. They're neither geniuses or giants. They're just failures with father wounds. But certainly we'll have you back on when you have more to report. So again, where can people follow you? Say the websites and X and everything.
Okay, so the website is bishforcongress.com. It's BISH, the T is silent, BISH for Congress.com. And that's the same handle that I use on X and on Facebook, LinkedIn, all of the social media sites. It's BISH for Congress. Well, and it's just keep it easy. My name is Chris Bish, so it gets you tongue-tied. That's why I dropped my first name.
I love the T is silent. That's funny. Well, you're doing great work. Very impressive work. Thank you for coming on, and wishing you all the best. God bless.
Well, it's a huge compliment coming from someone with your background. I am truly humbled and honored. Thank you.
Well, hang in there. Keep up the good
I will. And guys, go to bishforcongress.com. I need your help. You can volunteer from anywhere in the country. You can make phone calls, be a keyboard warrior, share things that I post. Of course, we need donations, and you can donate at bishforcongress.com. And, one of our slogans is, it's time to send a bish to Congress, because I'm just the bish to get things done.
All right. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Well, that was a great interview with Christine Bish, not Bitch, Bish. And she is I can tell you, she's a very impressive investigator, and she does the hard work. And that is excellent. So I think that's real. Okay. Yeah. Somebody has put bishforcongress.com in the Rumble Rant chat. That is excellent. Please share this episode and subscribe and like as well. And remember, the gun is not the answer. You are. The gun is a tool in a toolbox of tactics, techniques, and practices. Trump is not the answer. God is. Trump is a temporary advocate in a shifty, storming sea of political power alliances, riding the tides. To see the crooked lines of man, find the straight line of biblical truth. If you are widely popular, you are undoubtedly wrong. If you are mocked, made fun of, and mistreated, you're on target. If you're waiting for adulation and praise, join the circus. Ignore your critics. Cherish your friends. Know your chain of command. Delineate your duty. Triage your priorities. God, family, clan, tribe, nation. To become spirit-filled, empty ego. The only real initiation for a warrior is battle. True certification for a soldier is the enemy. It's not about how you comport yourself in victory, but in defeat. It's not how you perform in public, but in private. Be grateful, and you will become grace-filled. Our times here are like waterfall drops. Savor and share the moment, because all too soon and suddenly